The battlefield was silent now, but not peaceful. The ground was covered with broken machines, burning metal, and fallen bodies from both sides. Smoke rose high into the red sky, making it hard to breathe. The war between humans and the alien race called Valari had ended here, but not for everyone. Among the ruins, an alien girl slowly opened her eyes. Her name was Lyran. Her body was covered in dust and blood. A sharp pain ran through her leg, twisted, broken. She tried to move but fell back with a cry. The sound echoed across the empty battlefield, a small voice lost in the heavy air. "Help, someone, please," she whispered. No one answered. Her people had left. When the command ship took off, she had seen it, the bright light of the engines vanishing into the clouds. They had abandoned her, calling her weak, unfit for survival. She had fought beside them, bled beside them, but in the end, she was nothing to them. The silence pressed on her mind. Every few seconds, a distant explosion rumbled somewhere, followed by the crackle of fires still burning. Her sharp alien eyes tried to focus through the smoke, but everything was gray. The only color she could see was red, the glow of her own blood staining the ground. She remembered her last battle, how she had charged forward to protect her unit when the humans attacked. Plasma shots, screams, the sky on fire, and then darkness. Now she was here, alone, half buried under fallen armor. Fear began to grow inside her. Not fear of death, that was something she had accepted, but fear of being forgotten. She pressed her trembling hand to her heart and whispered in her native tongue, "Don't let it end like this." Then, footsteps. At first, she thought it was just metal falling, but no. There it was again. Slow, careful, human. Her heart jumped. The enemy was near. She reached for her weapon, but it was gone. Broken. She tried to crawl behind a metal plate, biting her lip to stay quiet, but the pain in her leg made her cry out. The footsteps stopped. Through the thick smoke, a figure appeared, tall, wearing a heavy combat suit with a cracked visor. The symbol on his armor was human, Earth Defense Corps. He was holding a rifle, its barrel glowing faintly from heat. Lyran froze. She had seen humans before on the front lines, strong, ruthless, unafraid of pain. They fought like demons, and now one was standing over her. The human raised his rifle slowly. She closed her eyes. "Do it," she whispered weakly. "Finish it." For a moment there was only silence. Then the sound of metal, the rifle being lowered. A deep voice said quietly, "You're not my enemy anymore." Her eyes opened. The man was kneeling beside her. His face was rough, tired, but his eyes were kind. Blue like the sky she had never seen without smoke. He opened a small med kit, ignoring her shocked expression. "Hold still," he said. "You're bleeding bad," she blinked, confused. "Why, help me?" She managed to ask. He didn't look at her. He just started wrapping her wound. "Because no one deserves to die alone." The words hit her harder than any bullet. Her vision blurred as he lifted her gently, carrying her across the battlefield. She could hear his armor clinking, his breath steady but heavy. Every step he took stirred up ash around them. "Don't waste your strength," he told her when she tried to speak again. "There's a shelter not far from here. You'll be safe there." "Safe?" she whispered. "From you?" He almost smiled. "Maybe from everything else." Lyran didn't understand this man. Her people had told her humans were monsters, destroyers of worlds. Yet this one carried her as if she mattered. Her head rested against his shoulder, and for the first time since the war began, she felt warmth. Behind them, the battlefield burned on. The cries of the dying faded with the wind. She looked back once, seeing the ruins of her people's pride. Ships torn apart, flags burned to ash. Tears slipped down her face. She whispered something in her alien language, a farewell to the ones who left her. "Say again?" the human asked softly. "It means, thank you," she said. He gave a short nod. "Name's Mason," he said quietly as they walked into the fog. "Sergeant Mason." "Lyran," she whispered. "I am Lyran." He looked at her with a small smile. "Well, Lyran, let's make sure you don't die today." As the smoke thickened, their figures slowly disappeared into the shadows. An alien girl and a human soldier walking side by side. Enemies by war, but bound by something stronger. Mercy. Above them, thunder rolled, not from storms, but from ships still fighting in the distance. The world was tearing itself apart. But in that broken silence, a strange bond had begun, one that neither command nor fear nor hatred could ever break. The night came early on the battlefield. The sun had fallen behind the black smoke, leaving only the orange light of burning wrecks. Sergeant Mason moved carefully through the ruins, carrying Lyran in his arms. Every few steps his boots sank into soft ash. The air smelled of metal, fire, and death. He finally reached an old bunker, half destroyed but still strong enough to protect them. The entrance was blocked by fallen debris. Mason set Lyran down gently and used his strength to clear a narrow path inside. "Stay awake," he told her as he worked. "Don't fall asleep yet." Lyran's voice was weak. "Why do you care?" He didn't answer. He pulled away the last piece of concrete and helped her inside. The bunker was cold and dark, filled with dust and the echo of dripping water. Mason turned on a small flashlight and looked around. There were broken cots, empty crates, and a few medical packs left behind. He placed Lyran on an old cot and checked her wound again. Her skin glowed faintly blue in the flashlight. Alien biology at work. The bleeding had slowed, but she was still pale. "You'll live," Mason said finally. "If infection doesn't get you." Lyran turned her face away. "Why not leave me outside?" "It would be easier." Mason pulled off his helmet, revealing tired eyes and a scar on his cheek. "I've seen enough people die today," he said quietly. "Human or alien, it doesn't matter anymore." For a moment there was silence. Only the soft wind outside and the low hum of broken machines filled the air. Lyran looked at him carefully. "You risked your life for me. Your soldiers will call you a traitor." He shrugged. "Maybe, but at least I'll sleep tonight." Hours passed. The sound of distant fighting slowly faded. Lyran tried to rest, but her mind would not stop. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her people flying away, leaving her to die. Her pride had always been strong. She was a soldier, a Valari warrior. Yet tonight she felt like a child, helpless and lost. Mason sat near the entrance, cleaning his weapon and listening for movement. His radio cracked with static, but the signal was gone. No orders, no backup. He was truly alone now, except for her. Lyran watched him in silence. He was different from what she had been taught. Her instructors had said humans were cruel, selfish, violent. But this one had not hurt her. He had given her water. He had even covered her with his own jacket when she shivered. Finally, she spoke. "You could have killed me." "I could have," he replied without looking up. "Then why didn't you?" He looked at her now, his blue eyes calm but full of weight. "Because I've already buried too many." Lyran didn't know what to say. For the first time, she didn't feel like a prisoner or a soldier. She felt seen. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the ground. Dust fell from the bunker ceiling. Mason jumped to his feet and grabbed his rifle. Lyran tried to rise but gasped in pain. "They found us?" Mason peeked through a crack in the bunker wall. "Drones, probably scanning the area." He turned back to her. "Don't move. Stay low." A red beam of light passed over the opening. Mason pressed against the wall, holding his breath. The drone buzzed closer, its sensors humming. Lyran's heart pounded. She could feel the heat of the scanner through the stone. If they were caught, the humans might kill her, or worse, take Mason for helping her. She closed her eyes and focused. The blue glow on her skin began to pulse softly. Mason turned, shocked. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "Trust me," she said through gritted teeth. The glow spread from her skin into the air, bending the light around them. For a few seconds, the room vanished from the drone's sensors, cloaked in a thin field of energy. Mason felt the air grow cold and heavy, his vision flickering like underwater light. Then silence. The drone passed by, moving on. Lyran dropped back onto the cot, breathing hard. Sweat ran down her face. "It will not last long," she said weakly. Mason stared at her, amazed. "You saved us." She gave a faint smile. "Now we are even." He knelt beside her, adjusting the bandage again. "You didn't have to do that." She looked into his eyes. "Neither did you." For the first time, Mason smiled. "Guess we're both bad at following orders." Later, as the night grew colder, Mason lit a small fire using broken wood from an old crate. The light danced across the walls, soft and warm. Lyran sat quietly, watching the flames. "On my planet," she said softly, "fire means life. We use it to tell stories at night." "Same on Earth," Mason said. "Fire keeps the dark away." She looked at him for a long time, then said, "Maybe we are not so different." He nodded slowly. Maybe not. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins like ghosts of the fallen. Inside, a human and an alien sat together, two enemies who no longer cared about flags or orders. In that cold bunker, far from both their worlds, something rare was born. Not friendship yet, but the beginning of trust. And as Lyran finally closed her eyes, she thought of one thing. If she lived to see another sunrise, it would be because one human soldier had chosen kindness over war. The morning light struggled to enter the old bunker. Dust hung in the air like fog. Lyran opened her eyes slowly, blinking at the soft glow of a small fire. Mason sat near the entrance, sharpening a broken knife, his armor now scratched and dirty. For a moment, Lyran forgot where she was. The war, the pain, the fact that she was lying inside a human shelter, alive only because of him. Then it all came back. She tried to sit up, wincing as her wounded leg ached. Mason turned quickly. "Easy," he said. "You'll tear the bandage again." "I can manage," she replied stubbornly. He smirked faintly. "You aliens really hate help, don't you?" She looked away. "We don't need it." "Could have fooled me," he said, gently pushing her back down. "You almost died out there." Lyran didn't answer. Her pride battled her gratitude. She wanted to thank him, but the words felt heavy. A sudden crackle came from Mason's radio. He froze. The voice of his commander cut through the static. "Sergeant Mason, report your position. Evacuation transport leaving in 2 hours. Repeat, 2 hours. Bring all surviving humans. Leave all non-humans behind." "That's an order." The signal ended. Silence filled the bunker again. Lyran looked at him. "Your people are coming for you," she said softly. "You should go." Mason didn't reply. He sat still, staring at the radio as if it had just betrayed him. "You heard the order," she continued. "I am not human. They will not let you bring me." He finally looked at her, his face calm but his eyes stormy. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I heard." Minutes passed. Lyran watched him clean his rifle, organize his pack, check his map. He looked like a man preparing to leave. Her chest tightened. She told herself she didn't care, that he was just another human. But deep down, she knew she didn't want to be alone again. Finally, she spoke. "When you go, take this." She handed him a small metal pendant shaped like a half moon. "It's from my family," she said. "They gave it to me when I joined the army." "So I wouldn't die forgotten?" He looked at it, then at her. "Why give it to me?" "Because," she said with a weak smile, "you will live." "I will not." Mason stared at the pendant for a long time. Then he closed her hand around it and said, "No, you're keeping this." Lyran frowned. "You don't understand. If they find you with me, they'll—" "I don't care," he interrupted. His voice was low but firm. "You think I'm going to just walk away? After all this?" She opened her mouth to argue, but the look on his face stopped her. There was no doubt, no fear, only resolve. He stood and checked his gear. "We move before sunrise." "I can carry you part of the way." "Move where?" "There's an old human base to the north. If we can reach it, I might find a shuttle." She stared at him, disbelief in her eyes. "You'll be killed if they see you protecting me." He shrugged. "Better to die doing the right thing than live doing nothing." Lyran's throat tightened. She didn't know humans could sound like that. Simple, honest, strong. Hours later, they moved out. Mason supported her with one arm as they crossed the broken landscape. The air was cold, carrying the smell of smoke and iron. Every sound made them stop. Every shadow could be an enemy. At one point, Mason stumbled, his leg bleeding from an old wound. Lyran noticed and said softly, "You're hurt." He brushed it off. "I've had worse." "You humans," she whispered. "You never stop." He smiled faintly. "Neither do you." They reached a ridge overlooking the valley. From there they could see the wreckage of ships, old trenches, and beyond that, a faint glimmer of light. The old base. But between them and the base was a patrol, human soldiers sweeping the area with searchlights. Mason lowered his head, cursing under his breath. "They're early." Lyran grabbed his arm. "Go, leave me here. If they see me, they'll shoot." He shook his head. "Not leaving you." She looked at him, tears forming in her glowing eyes. "Why?" she whispered. "Why risk everything for me?" Mason stared at her for a moment before answering. "Because when I found you, I saw someone who didn't deserve what this war gave her. And maybe saving you is how I save myself." Her lips parted, but no words came. The searchlights came closer. Mason pulled her down behind a rock. "We wait until they pass, then we move," he whispered. She nodded, still staring at him. He had chosen her, an alien, over his own kind. In that quiet moment, Lyran made a promise to herself. If she lived through this, she would repay this human's kindness no matter the cost. As the night deepened, the patrol moved away. Mason helped her stand again. The base was still far, but the path was clear. Lyran looked at him and said softly, "You're a fool, Mason." He smiled. "Yeah, but I'm your fool." Together they disappeared into the fog, a soldier who defied his orders and an alien who had been abandoned by her own. Two enemies walking into the unknown, bound now not by war but by something stronger, a promise. The night wind howled across the valley like a ghostly song. Mason and Lyran moved quietly through the ruins, their shadows long under the broken moonlight. The ground was rough, covered with twisted metal and shattered glass. Each step made a soft crunch, too loud for a night like this. Mason led the way, his rifle ready. He checked every corner before moving. Lyran followed close, her wounded leg wrapped tight but still weak. Every time she stumbled, he slowed down for her, never complaining. They had been walking for hours since leaving the bunker. The human base was not far now, maybe 1 more mile. But the path was crawling with patrol drones and scavengers. The world around them was silent, yet full of hidden eyes. Lyran whispered, "They're close." Her alien senses were sharper than his. She could feel the hum of machines even before they appeared. Mason nodded. "Stay behind me." Suddenly, a red light flashed through the smoke and a search drone. It hovered above the ruins, scanning the ground with a laser beam. Mason pushed Lyran behind a broken wall. "Don't move," he whispered. The drone drifted closer, its engine humming like an angry insect. The red beam swept over the rubble, coming nearer, nearer, until it touched the edge of Mason's boot. Lyran's breath caught in her throat. Mason froze, his finger tight on the trigger. One wrong move, and the drone would call the soldiers nearby. Then, without warning, the drone turned its light toward them. Mason cursed under his breath and fired. The bullet hit the drone's sensor and it exploded in sparks. The sound echoed through the ruins. "Run!" Mason shouted. Lyran tried to run, but her leg gave out. Mason grabbed her arm and pulled her forward. Behind them, more red lights flickered. More drones, more soldiers coming. They ducked into an old building, its roof half gone. Mason leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "They'll surround us soon," he said. Lyran looked at him, her chest rising fast. "Give me your hand," she said quickly. "What?" "Trust me," she said, louder this time. He hesitated for a second, then reached out. Her skin was warm and glowing, faintly blue. She closed her eyes and a strange hum filled the air. A shimmer surrounded them, like waves in the air. Mason blinked. The wall seemed to bend and twist. The light around them changed. Suddenly, the sound of the approaching soldiers faded and even the wind grew still. "What's happening?" Mason whispered. "I'm bending the light," Lyran said weakly. "We are invisible." But not for long. Through the broken window, they watched the soldiers rush past. Armored figures with flashlights and rifles scanning every corner. One of them stopped right outside their hiding place, his light sweeping across the room. Mason held his breath. The soldier looked straight at them and saw nothing. Lyran trembled. Blood trickled from her nose. The energy she used was draining her fast. "Lyran, stop," Mason said softly. "You'll kill yourself." She shook her head. "If I stop now, they'll find us." The soldier outside finally moved on. Mason could hear their voices fading into the distance. After a few minutes, everything was quiet again. The glow around them faded. Lyran collapsed, her body limp. Mason caught her before she hit the ground. Hey. "Stay with me," he said, shaking her gently. Her eyes fluttered open. "Did it work?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah, you saved us." She gave a weak laugh. "Then we're even again." "Not even close," Mason said quietly. He carried her deeper into the ruins, away from the path of the patrol. They found shelter in an old library building. Its shelves collapsed. Its ceiling open to the stars. Mason laid Lyran down carefully and covered her with his jacket. Her skin was cold now, her breathing shallow. He sat beside her, staring at the cracked ceiling. "You keep saving my life," he said softly. "That's not how this was supposed to go." She smiled faintly, eyes half closed. Maybe I don't like owing humans, he chuckled. Then we'll call it a draw. For a while they sat in silence. The fire from nearby wrecks flickered through the windows, painting their faces in orange and gold. Mason took out a small pack of rations and held it out to her. Eat. You need strength, she shook her head. Your food. Not for me. Doesn't matter, he said, pushing it into her hands. You're my responsibility now. Her eyes softened. Your people wouldn't agree. I don't care what they agree with, he replied. I care about what's right. Lyran looked away, hiding the emotion in her face. She had never met anyone like him, someone who didn't see her as a monster or a threat. For the first time since the war began, she felt something she thought she'd lost: hope. As dawn began to rise, the first light touched the ruins. Lyran opened her eyes again and saw Mason watching the horizon, his rifle across his lap. She whispered, "Why do you keep risking your life for me?" He looked at her for a long time before answering. Because if we stop saving each other, what's the point of all this fighting? She smiled weakly. Strange words. From a soldier. He gave a quiet laugh. Yeah, guess I'm a strange soldier. The wind blew softly through the broken glass. The world outside was still at war, but here, in the ruins, two enemies had become something different. Something the universe hadn't seen in a long time. A beginning. The morning sun rose weakly through the broken clouds, turning the battlefield into shades of gray and gold. Mason sat near a small fire, his hands wrapped around a metal cup of lukewarm water. He hadn't slept all night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the flashes of red lights, the drones, the soldiers hunting them. Beside him, Lyran lay still under his jacket. Her skin, once glowing softly blue, looked pale now. She was breathing, but faintly. Mason watched her for a long time before whispering to himself, "You saved me again, alien girl. Guess I owe you my life twice over." He didn't know why he cared this much. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was something deeper. Something that made him see her not as an enemy, but as someone just trying to survive. Like him. A faint sound broke his thoughts. Lyran stirred, her eyes slowly opening. She blinked at the light and groaned softly. "You should rest," Mason said, moving closer. Her voice was weak but calm. "Rest is for the safe," he gave a half smile. "You're with me. That's as safe as it gets." She tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "You talk too much," she said. "And you argue too much," he replied, helping her sit against a wall. For a moment, silence filled the space between them. Not heavy, but quiet, almost peaceful. The world outside had gone mad, yet inside this ruined library, time felt slower, softer. Lyran looked around the room. What was this place? Old Earth Library, Mason said. People used to come here to learn, before war burned it down. She touched a ruined book nearby, its pages torn and covered in dust. "Strange," she murmured. "My people burn books. We fear them. Why?" Mason asked. "Because books remember what we try to forget," she said softly. "Our past, our mistakes." Mason nodded. "Same problem on Earth." He poked the fire gently with a stick. "You know, I used to read about stars when I was a kid. Thought I'd travel the galaxy one day. Never imagined I'd be here fighting aliens on some forgotten planet." Lyran tilted her head. "Did you hate us before?" He paused. "I don't think I ever hated you. I just followed orders. That's what soldiers do." She looked at him carefully. "And now?" He glanced at her and smiled faintly. "Now I don't see an alien. I just see someone who didn't give up." Lyran's throat tightened. No one, not even her own people, had ever said something like that. A cold breeze blew through the cracks in the walls. Mason stood and added more wood to the fire. The warmth spread slowly, painting his face in gold light. Lyran studied him silently. His hair was messy, his armor damaged, his eyes tired, yet there was something steady about him. Humans were fragile, yet he carried himself with unshakable strength. "Tell me about your home," she said quietly. He smiled a little. "Earth, it's messy, loud, too many people, too many cities. But it has oceans, big blue ones. You can walk for miles along the beach and hear nothing but waves. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I think about that sound. Oceans," Lyran repeated softly. "My world has only dust. No water, no sky, only metal towers. Maybe that's why we came here. To take what we lost." Mason looked at her. "And what did you lose?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Ourselves." Her voice trembled slightly. I was born weak, smaller than others. My father wanted to send me away, but my mother trained me in secret. She said strength comes from pain. So I fought even when they laughed at me. I thought if I won enough battles, they'd see me as worthy. Did they? Mason asked. She smiled bitterly. They left me behind. That was their answer. Mason felt a deep ache in his chest. He moved closer, his voice low. They were wrong. You're more of a soldier than anyone I've ever known. Her eyes glowed faintly again, reflecting the firelight. You think kindness is strength, she said. Humans are strange, he smiled. Maybe. But kindness is the only thing that's ever made me feel human. Hours passed. The fire burned lower. Mason shared the last of his food with her. She hesitated at first, but finally accepted, taking small bites. This is terrible, she said with a small laugh. Yeah, he replied, but it's all we've got. For a moment, they laughed together in a sound so rare it felt unreal among the ruins. Then, as the laughter faded, Lyran said quietly, If we reach your base, what will you do? Mason looked into the fire. I'll find a way to get you off this planet. Somewhere safe. And you? I'll face the court-martial. Maybe prison. Maybe worse, she frowned. You would risk your life for me? He looked at her, unsteady, sure. I already did. Her heart pounded. She didn't know what this feeling was, fear, gratitude, or something else. Something deeper. The sky outside darkened again. Lyran lay back, staring up through the cracked ceiling at the stars. Your stars are brighter than ours, she said softly. Mason looked up too. Maybe because we keep wishing on them. She turned to him. What do you wish for, human? He smiled faintly. That this war ends before it breaks us all. She closed her eyes. And I wish that I'd met you before it began. For the first time since the war started, Mason felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. Two souls born on different worlds finding peace in each other's silence. As the night deepened, the stars shone above, silent witnesses to a bond that had crossed the line between species, between enemies and between hearts. The next morning began with thunder, not from clouds, but from engines. Mason woke instantly, hand on his rifle. The low hum grew louder, echoing through the ruins like the growl of a machine beast. Lyran stirred, her senses alert. Ships, she whispered. Your people. Mason moved to the window. Across the valley, dust swirled beneath the powerful descent of human dropships. They were scanning the area, landing troops in search formations. His stomach tightened. Evac team, he muttered. They're early. Lyran sat up, pain flashing through her leg. Then go, she said quietly. If they see me, they'll kill me, and you with me. He turned sharply. I'm not leaving you, Lyran. She shook her head. You have no choice. They'll see me as an enemy. I'll only slow you down. Mason clenched his jaw. You think I care about that? Her eyes softened. You should. But before he could answer, a voice shouted through a megaphone outside. Sergeant Mason, this is Commander Red of the Earth Defense Corps. Report your position immediately. Mason froze. They knew he was here. He took a deep breath and looked at Lyran. Stay hidden, he said firmly. I'll handle this, she gripped his arm. They'll take you away. I've faced worse. He forced a small smile. Just trust me. For a long moment, she stared at him. The man who had saved her life, shared his food, and shown her a world beyond hate. Then she nodded. Don't lie to them, she said. Humans respect truth, yes? He looked down. Not always. Outside, the dust whipped around him as he stepped into the open. A group of soldiers approached from the landing zone, weapons ready. Commander Red, tall and cold-eyed, walked at the front. Mason, Red said, his voice sharp. You went off-grid for 72 hours. What the hell happened? Mason stood straight. My unit was wiped out. I found shelter, survived. Red eyed him suspiciously. Alone? Mason hesitated. Yes. Red's gaze narrowed. We detected alien energy readings near your location. Care to explain? Mason's heartbeat quickened. The whole valley's full of alien wreckage. Probably residual energy from their weapons. The commander stepped closer. I've seen that excuse before. He turned to his men. Search the building. Mason's eyes widened. Sir, that's unnecessary. There's nothing. Stand down, Sergeant, Red barked. Mason froze, fists tight. The soldiers moved past him, entering the library. His heart pounded as he imagined Lyran hiding in the shadows, too weak to run. too bright to blend in. He whispered under his breath, "Please, stay quiet." Inside, the soldier searched every room. Broken shelves, shattered windows, piles of dust. Nothing. Until one of them shouted, "Sir, over here!" Mason's blood turned to ice. Commander Red entered the building. Lyran was there, half hidden behind the fallen shelves, her glowing skin giving her away. Two soldiers pointed their rifles at her, their faces hard. Red smirked. "Well, well." A live Valari. Mason ran inside. "Wait, don't shoot." "She's unarmed." Red turned slowly toward him. "You lied to me. She's not a threat," Mason said firmly. "She's injured, barely surviving. We can—" Red cut him off. "We don't take prisoners, Sergeant. You know the law." "Then the law is wrong," Mason said, stepping between the rifles and Lyran. The soldiers hesitated. They'd seen Mason fight beside them, save their lives more than once. But now he was standing in front of an alien, protecting her. Red's eyes darkened. "Step aside, Mason, that's an order." Mason's voice was quiet but unshaken. "No," Red's jaw tightened. "You're disobeying a direct command. You'll be court-martialed, stripped of rank, imprisoned." Mason looked back at Lyran. Her eyes met his, frightened but proud. "Do what you have to," Mason said, "but I'm not letting anyone harm her." Red's face twisted with anger. "Fine," he turned to his soldiers. "Take them both." The soldiers moved forward. Lyran's breath quickened. "Mason," she whispered. He raised his hands slowly, trying to stay calm. "Don't do this, Red, you're making a mistake." Before anyone could move further, the ground suddenly shook. A deep rumble rolled beneath their feet. From the distance, alien drones burst from the clouds, drawn by the dropship's heat signatures. Blue plasma bolts rained from the sky. "Contact! Incoming fire!" shouted one of the soldiers. Chaos erupted. Explosions tore through the ruins. Mason grabbed Lyran and pulled her behind a wall as dust and fire filled the air. Red's men returned fire, shouting commands. The drones circled, relentless. Mason tried to shield Lyran as debris crashed around them. One drone aimed directly at Red's squad. Mason saw it too late, until Lyran raised her hand. Her body glowed bright blue, brighter than ever before. Energy pulsed from her palm, forming a barrier of light that absorbed the plasma blast. The explosion hit like thunder, shaking the ground, throwing soldiers off their feet. The light faded and Lyran collapsed into Mason's arms. He looked down at her, terrified. "Lyran, stay with me!" She smiled weakly. "You always protect me." "My turn." Red stood nearby, staring in disbelief at the glowing alien who had just saved their lives. For the first time, the cold commander hesitated. Mason glared at him.
"Still think she's the enemy?"
Red said nothing. His expression changed, something between shame and confusion. He finally gestured to his men. "Get the medic, now!" Minutes later, as the dust settled, Mason sat beside Lyran on a field stretcher. Her breathing was faint, her skin dimming. "You'll be fine," he whispered. "You hear me? You'll be fine." Her voice was soft, fading. "If I die, don't let them forget I tried to save them." He held her hand tight. "You're not dying. Not after everything we've been through." In the distance, human ships began lifting off again, carrying survivors away. But Mason stayed beside her, refusing to move, because in that moment, duty didn't matter. Orders didn't matter. Only she did. The world outside the infirmary window was quiet. For the first time in weeks, the sky was blue again, clear, almost peaceful. But inside, Sergeant Mason sat motionless beside a medical bed, his eyes fixed on the pale figure resting under thin sheets. Lyran. Her chest rose and fell slowly, each breath a fragile rhythm. Her once bright blue glow was dim now, fading to a soft pulse beneath her skin. She looked smaller, weaker, yet somehow, even in silence, she carried the strength of a soldier. Mason hadn't left her side since they were brought to the base 2 days ago. The medics had worked hard to stabilize her. Still, every beep of the monitor made his heart twist. He had faced death countless times before, but this, watching her fight to stay alive, felt worse than any battlefield. The door opened. Commander Red entered, his uniform crisp, his expression unreadable. 2 officers followed him. "Mason," Red said flatly. "You're awake." "Barely," Mason replied. His voice was rough from exhaustion. Red walked closer. "You disobeyed a direct order. You sheltered an alien. You lied to command." He paused. And yet she saved an entire squad, and including me. Mason looked up slowly. Funny how that works, huh? Red's jaw tightened. Don't get smart with me, Sergeant. You'll still face a court inquiry. I don't care about rank, Mason said. I care about her. Red's eyes flicked toward Lyran. She's stable for now, but High Command wants her transferred to a research facility. They'll study her powers, her biology, maybe even use her to make better weapons. Mason stood up sharply. She's not a weapon. Don't lecture me, Red snapped. You think I get to decide? Orders are orders, Mason took a step forward. Then break them, just once. Red's expression darkened. You think I can risk my career for an alien? Mason's voice was calm, but his eyes burned. You already did the moment she saved your life. Silence. For the first time, Red looked unsure. The two soldiers behind him shifted uncomfortably. Watch your tone, Mason, Red muttered. You're lucky you're not in chains. I don't care what happens to me, Mason said, lowering his voice. But she doesn't deserve to be locked away. She fought to protect humans. She bled for us. Red looked away. I'll see what I can do, he said finally, turning to leave. Mason exhaled slowly. He didn't believe him, not yet. Hours passed. The day turned to evening. Shadows stretched long across the walls. Mason sat by Lyran's bed again, his hands folded around hers. You hear that? He whispered. They want to take you apart. Study you like some lab rat? Her fingers twitched faintly. Her voice, weak but clear, broke the silence. Then, I will let them try. Mason leaned forward, startled. You're awake. Her lips curved into a tired smile. You worry too much? He shook his head, relief flooding his chest. You scared the hell out of me. I've done that before, she murmured. He smiled weakly. Yeah, you have. For a while they sat in quiet peace. Then Mason said softly, They want to move you, somewhere secret. Somewhere I can't follow. Lyran's eyes opened wider. And you will let them? He hesitated. If I stop them, I'll be branded a traitor. They'll throw me in prison. She turned her head slightly, looking at him with that strange, gentle strength. Then go live, you have done enough. Mason shook his head. No, Lyran, I made you a promise and that I'd keep you safe. And I don't break promises. Her eyes softened. Humans, she whispered. Always saving people who don't belong to them. Maybe that's what makes us human, he said quietly. Later that night, alarms echoed through the base. Mason looked up from his seat, heart pounding. The intercom blared. Unauthorized breach in Medical Sector 3. He ran to the window. A small ship hovered beyond the walls, not human, but Valari. Her people. Lyran sat up weakly. They came for me. After abandoning you? Mason asked bitterly. She looked down. Maybe they changed their minds. The door burst open. 2 guards rushed in. Sergeant Mason, secure the patient. But Mason was already moving. He helped Lyran out of bed and toward the back corridor. What are you doing? One guard shouted. Finishing what I started, Mason said. They ran through the smoke-filled hallway. Outside, the ship's beam cut through the fog like a pillar of light. Mason helped Lyran to the platform. She turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly again. Come with me, she said. You'll be safe, he shook his head. No, my place is here. You'll be hunted, she warned. He smiled sadly. So will you. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, 2 souls bound by something neither could explain. She reached out and touched his hand. Thank you, Mason, for showing me what humanity truly means. And thank you, he whispered, for reminding me why it's worth saving. The beam lifted her up, her form fading into light. The ship rose, disappearing into the sky. Mason stood there long after it was gone, watching the stars. Days later, Mason stood before a military tribunal. He had lost his rank, his badge, his future. But as he walked out of the courtroom, reporters shouted his name. The story had spread. The alien who saved humans and the soldier who saved her. He looked up at the sky, where a single blue light flickered faintly among the stars. Stay safe out there, Lyran, he whispered. We'll meet again, someday. And for the first time in a long time, the war-scarred soldier smiled. Because deep down, he knew the universe had changed forever.